Good morning, church. We're here together again for another community builder devotion. I'm sitting here at my dining room table. You can see my dog Ava in the background on that brown chair. She may get up and move around in the midst of this, but that's okay. I'll introduce her to you. Today, my neighborhood is eerily quiet. And I bet yours is too. There's not much movement today. We're all under a stay-at-home order here in North Carolina. And in my neighborhood, normally in April, there would be people walking and there would be boats going by for people going to go fishing. There would just be lots and lots of activities. So it's really a different feeling today. It feels like a wilderness. And most of us don't start life in a wilderness, thank goodness. And it's good to realize that most of us don't end life in a wilderness. But here we are sort of in this middle space, having a little wilderness moment in a surprising place when we think about our own home as a place that might feel a little bit foreign today and a little bit like a wilderness. Today I'm using some information from a book by Eugene Peterson. It's Leap Over a Wall. And here's how he describes sort of this way that we find ourselves suddenly in a wilderness in the middle of life. He says, everything's going along fine. We've learned the language of the country. We've gotten a job. We have decorated a house, signed up for car payments, made out some kind of schedule that imposes an order on our time. We have responsibilities that define our significance. We have heard people speak our name and determined that we are identifiable. And then suddenly we are beside ourselves because we don't know what's going on within us or in another who is important to us, and feelings erupt in us that call into question what we've never questioned before. So we get this radical change in our bodies and or our emotions or our thinking or our friends or our job, and we're out of control, and that is the wilderness. So I have to do something here. I have a little timer on my screen that tells me I've been on Facebook too long today, so I turn that off. So we're thinking about what it means to be in the wilderness, and it's good to know what happens here. If we're going to spend the next 30 days in this spot, then let's think about it. So I began to think about what scriptures would talk about how we can navigate the wilderness, and there's many. We could look at the Exodus story. We could look at the story that kicked off Lent of Jesus going into the wilderness, being tempted by Satan. But the one that really sticks out to me is David when he's being chased by Saul. Because I can't say I've ever felt pursued before, but this moment with the coronavirus feels a little bit like being pursued. Now, if you've been in the military or you are a first responder, maybe you have felt that feeling of pursuit or the feeling like you're being chased, but many of us have not. And so that's what this kind of feels like. So I wanted to think about David a little bit. David, when he was pursued, he was in the En-Gedi, which is in Israel. Now I want to show you a couple of pictures of the En-Gedi. Here is one of them today. Now this part is an oasis. So isn't that beautiful? That is the En-Gedi on the Dead Sea. And so that is where you can go picnic and you can buy ice cream, and there's a bathhouse, and it's really beautiful and just gorgeous. And here's a place that's sort of a little bit closer. There's this Facebook challenge going around where people are posting landscapes they find beautiful. And this is one that I posted that is on the En-Gedi. Isn't that pretty, of the Dead Sea, how gorgeous it looks? But if you just turn around from that place and look the other direction, like 300 yards, there all of a sudden are these 2,000-foot tall cliffs, and it gets completely barren. There's some caves made out of the erosion. There is hardly any life there. It's maybe some hyenas and some lizards and vultures, and that's about it. And that is where David went for several years to escape from Saul. And so um, Eugene Peterson, who was a theologian and a translator of the Bible, he went into the Engedi, into that wilderness, just to kind of feel what it would feel like to be David in pursuit. And when he first went there, he said it felt really uncomfortable and alien and austere. And maybe you're feeling a little bit like that today in your own home. Maybe it feels too quiet, too odd, too different. But Peterson said the more that he traveled around in the Badlands of the Engedi area, that he began to see its beauty, and he began to hear more and see more and believe more. He began to really discover the beauty of that wilderness place. So life can feel precarious in the wilderness, but there are things that we can learn, and even if it's a circumstantial wilderness like the one that we're in. So here's a couple of things that you can learn about the wilderness. In the wilderness, we're not in control. There's some things we can do. We've been advised. The one thing we can control is we can stay home. We can stay in this wilderness spot. But there's much swirling in the world that we just are not in control of right now. The second thing that we'll learn about the wilderness is that in the wilderness, our lives simplify and they deepen. So the decision making becomes less. It's what are we going to eat next? What are you going to read next? Maybe who are you going to call and check on? But not the number of decisions that there are when we're in sort of the hubbub and the busyness of our everyday lives. And so in the midst of this wilderness, as we simplify and deepen, maybe you rediscover something about yourself. You rediscover a sense of fun or a sense of spontaneity. So take that time just to notice. And then the third thing that we learn in the wilderness that we're in right now, if you really search your heart, if you really listen, if you really open your eyes, you might find that a single word crosses your lips more than usual. And that word is God. What a beautiful gift of the wilderness to have a new realization or a greater awareness of God in the world. And so there are these things that you can see and do in the wilderness that you can't do anywhere else. And they culminate in an awareness of the mystery of our Creator. So this morning, I leave you as I had been leaving you with a prayer from Brian Doyle from the book of Uncommon Prayer. And I love the way that in this particular prayer, he just notices new things. He notices things in his own home, his own little wilderness that he wouldn't notice if he were out and about doing his job, going to the grocery store, taking kids to school. So listen to this prayer, and just as a reminder, these prayers are almost like essays, but here you go, and then I'll leave you with a question. This is a prayer for the little brown birds nesting in the lavender bushes by the walnut tree. Sparrows, I think, or maybe wrens on steroids. Never mind, they're sparrows. I see the plumage better from this angle. Sorry about that. But how extraordinary they are, how liquid quick, How alert and eager and sharp-eyed for seeds and nuts. How quick to slide away into the lavender when man or dog or squirrel approaches. Such dots of dash, such infinitesimal beings, not one of them as big as my fist. What a world to have sparrows in it. And silently, suddenly, God, I ask you for their safety, these little comedians. Keep them from the neighborhood cats, the coyotes in the ravine, the occasional gopher snake, the stooping kestrel. Give them their daily bread and their mysterious love affairs, and a peace that surpasseth all understanding. Grant them not one but two clutches of eggs, a plethora of nestlings to love and harbor, as you have granted me the same. And here they come now, sleepy and disheveled, wondering what I am watching so carefully by the walnut tree. And we stand together for a delicious moment, for which I thank you also. And so, amen. So that is what Brian Doyle noticed in his wilderness moment in his own house. What will you notice today? Where will you see something new or learn something new in your own home wilderness today? I'll leave you with that question. My love to you. Go in peace. Amen.